Happy Friday. Welcome to Masterclass Friday. That's it. Masterclass Friday on a Friday at Adobe Live. That makes sense? So, this is what we do every Friday that we're working. We try to give an hour of our favorite and best techniques and tips and tricks for our various disciplines. So, you'll see graphic design, Photoshop, photography, video, audio, digital painting and drawing, and of course Adobe Express every Friday here at Adobe Live. So if you're watching for the first time, that's awesome. If you're come here every week, that's even more awesome. You can always join the chat, the main chat that I'll be looking at over at b.net/Adobe Live. So there are two chat windows I have open. The main one's the Adobe Live chat, but I see people popping in from other platforms like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Twitch, so forth and so on. So for example, Andrew Kavanaugh just popped in over on Facebook and said hello. And Simon just popped over on YouTube and said hello. And I'll try to look at both windows for questions, but I won't always get a chance to see both because I'm trying to monitor two main chats and everything that's going on my screen. So if I don't see your question, just repeat it. Like after you've given me enough time and you're like, hey, you skipped my question or it scrolled by and it's important, go ahead and repeat it. But if you ask it over on Adobe Live, you also get some help from the moderators. They might get a chance, and other people in the chat might be able to chime in as well. So what are we doing today? Now that we got all the housekeeping out of the way, we're doing how to share your photos. All the various ways that I can fit within an hour. I can't do them all, but every one that matters that I can fit within an hour, we're going to do here. And it could be from Lightroom. It could be from Lightroom Classic. It could be from Photoshop. It could be from your mobile device. All the various ways of sharing. So with that said, I'm not going to waste any more time talking about stuff. Let's go ahead and dive right into today's topic. All right, let's turn off that banner. Let's pop over to my desktop. I'm going to start where I usually start, which is Lightroom Classic. I've got a collection put together from an event. This was downtown Atlanta. This was a happy hour for Adobe employees because we're actually getting an Atlanta facility downtown. Like I would have never guessed. If I were to ask in the chat, how many Adobe employees do you think are based in the Atlanta area? I would be curious to see your number. I would have guessed, if you would have asked me this question before I found out, I'd have said, I don't know, 20, 10, 15, 30. I don't know, like somewhere in that ballpark. Come to find out, there are 200 plus employees at Adobe in the Atlanta metro area. Now, a lot of that's come from the sales side, acquisitions, different companies we acquired over the years, but wow, I would have never guessed 200. So we're getting a facility. This was the happy hour. These are some of the random just smartphone pictures. Some of these are mine. Some of the ones people took and sent to me. And we're going to use these as a way of sharing in all the ways of sharing photos today. So, and I have a couple of my own Atlanta shots up front. They weren't taken that day, but they were taken with my, probably back then, my DSLR. And there was a raw files, and we'll just get into all this. Okay, so first and foremost, when people think about sharing, what you have to look at is who you're sharing it with. What are their capabilities? In other words, can they handle a raw file? Do you want to send them a raw file? Probably not, because A, they probably can't handle it if they're not a photographer. B, why send them a big, huge raw file if you don't have to? So typically, the file format of choice that 100% of people can handle is JPEG, because JPEG was created as a standard decades ago for that very purpose. It's a non-proprietary standard. It's free to use. Every application supports it. Browsers support it. Email application, everything can view a JPEG. So you never have an issue. I shouldn't say never. 99.999% of the time, you'll never have an issue sending someone a JPEG. Okay, so then it gets into, well, even if it's a JPEG, it could be huge, especially if you shot with a 48 megapixel camera, 50 megapixel camera, 100 megapixel, whatever you're shooting with. That could still make a sizable JPEG that's too big to email, takes too long to view in a browser, takes too long for the person to look at, and you send them 4 or 5 of them, now you just bog down their whole system, even though they're JPEGs and even though they can open them. So it also gets into sizing the photos down to a reasonable size, still maintaining quality, if that's what you're trying to do, that they can handle and still look at. So, and there are various reasons for sharing your photos. You might want to share just, hey, here's a photo I took from the event. Have at it, like someone sent me some of theirs. Here's a photo of a photograph I took of you. Here it is for your profile picture, for you to use, for you to print. Now, the minute you say print, then the requirements go up because they probably need a little bit higher resolution than screen quality to be able to print that file at a decent size. So again, a lot of it is determined on what's going to happen with the photo on the other end of that share. When you share it to a person, what are you sharing it to for? What are you sharing it to them for? Just to look at or to do more with it? So that's what it boils down to. So for example, let's say that I took, this was like I just literally held up my phone and took this selfie shot. So let's say I wanted to share this. Right, if I wanted to share this photo, I would, and it's not my favorite photo, but if I wanted to share this, I go up to the export menu, go up to the file menu, choose export, and that'll bring up all these settings and all these things you can do. And it's a scrolling list of things that, and again, all of this is depending on what you need. So the first thing it wants is, where are you going to export this to? And usually 99.9% of the time, you're going to share it to your hard drive. Okay, great. Got that solved. Where are you sharing it on your hard drive? Because you're going to need to go look for it once you've shared it. So this is very important too. This gives you a heads up of where it's going to go. So I'm going to say to my desktop, I'm going to say put it in a specific folder that even if that folder doesn't exist, it's going to create it. So let's call it February 10 Masterclass. That way we know it's a folder that's brand new that I don't have. So if you put a name in here and that folder doesn't exist, it'll create it on the fly. All right, do you need to rename that photo? Because right now I don't even know what the name of this photo is. It's img2238.heic. Okay, so I probably want to maybe name that something else. So let's rename it to a custom name. And I can either do the original number or a sequence. So let's make it a custom name. Let's call it ATL Adobe Happy Hour 1. And that's fine. It'll do a 1 after the name. Perfect. All right, now scroll up. It's not video. Don't have to worry about any of that. Here we get down to the file format. Do you want a JPEG? Which I said, I gave you all the reasons why you'd want a JPEG. Do you want a PSD? Maybe you're giving it to a designer and you want a higher like not compressed file. Same thing with TIFF, a not compressed file. A PNG file, usually for a photo, usually not. A DNG or the original, whatever format it was in. So another HEIC in this case. So in this case, we do want a JPEG, but now we get into the sizing. So if I say, don't resize it, then this is where it will take that 48 megapixel file, make a 48 megapixel JPEG. So I usually want to resize things down that I'm sharing, especially if it's not for print. So resize it. Now, you can actually specify an exact width and height. And I used to do that back in the early days. Don't ask me why. It's a waste of time. What's better is to simply size it on the long edge. You could do megapixels if you're a geek. You could do percentage. I don't know why you'd want to do math. You're either a math geek, do percentage. If you're a photo geek, do megapixels. If you're everyone else, do long edge. Now, what does long edge mean? Long edge means if it's a wide photo, the longest edge is the width. If it's a portrait photo, the longest edge is the height. So this is a wide image, so the longest edge is what I'm sizing it based on, and the height will take care of itself proportionally. Now, you notice that it says 1080 pixels in there already, because that's usually what I default to these days for sharing just something for people to look at on the screen. Robert's asking, question, how do you share photos for print like Fuji? We're going to get to that. All right, so 1080. Why 1080? Why not 1000? Why not 2000? Why 1080? Because I've been doing 1080 for the last few years because it was, and I think still is, the recommended size for Instagram. And usually it's a decent enough size for someone to look at. It's not too big, not too small. You can, of course, make it whatever you want. But I figure if it's big enough for Instagram, it's probably big enough for people to look at in emails, text messages, so forth and so on. So 1080 has been my default. Make it whatever you want. Now, the don't enlarge is really the intent behind it, because it's something you probably don't care about anymore, but the intent behind it was if you had a super small photo, and I said 1080, let's say the photo was only 400, don't enlarge means only send it out as 400. Don't try and bump it up to 1080, and it's not already 1080. So in most cases, you won't have a file that needs to be up-resed to 1080 or whatever you're sharing it at. It's already much bigger than that, and you're scaling it down. As a matter of fact, this photo, if we look over here on the right-hand side, this photo is 4032 on the long edge. So it's already it's almost four times bigger than 1080. So that way, it's going to size it down. I never have to worry about it enlarging. Now, the resolution is how many pixels per inch is that 1080? And screen resolution, at least on the Mac side, has been 72 for years, the default. I know you have Retina displays and high resolution displays now and so forth and so on. But 72 has always still been a good number for me. You can go higher, you can go 144, 200, 300, whatever you want. But that's going to say it's going to make it 1080, but a higher density of pixels. Does that make sense? Because it's pixels per inch. So 72 has always worked for me without too many issues. It's not too big, not too small, still big enough to look at. If you want to go higher on the size or the resolution, you can go higher. All right, output sharpening. I usually don't have this turned on for screen resolution, meaning 1080 I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference, and I don't want to run the risk of it over sharpening. That's my problem. For print, absolutely, I'd turn on sharpening for output. But for small screen looking at images, you could turn it on. You could say do for screen, standard, high or low, and it might make a small difference. But I usually don't do it for screen size images. Okay, metadata. This is another big one, especially for sharing your photos. Do you want all the metadata in your photo that you took? In other words, all means all. So all means all your camera information, all your settings, your serial number for your camera, so forth and so on. And the minute I say serial number for your camera, people usually freak out and say, oh my God, why would I want to share that? Because all means all. So it's every bit of information that's been captured by your camera that's in that file. Now, not all cameras like your smartphone might not put the serial number in, but your DSLRs and mirrorlesses do. Mirrorlesses, your mirrorless cameras do. So in that case, you might want to not do all. You might want to do all except camera and camera raw info. That's good. That means it's not putting in any of that info from the actual camera. But a safe one is just simply the copyright and contact info, because then you're not putting in metadata about where the photo was taken, like the geotag information. You're not, because what if you took it at your house and you don't want to share that? You're not sharing, if you geotag the person's name, then if the person's name's in there, you put that in as a tag, keyword, so forth and so on. None of that stuff's being exported. So just copyright and contact info is safer because it's only your name and whatever contact info you put in your metadata template. Okay, if you want a watermark, Lightroom has a watermarking feature that you can create your own watermark or just use a simple one. I have my own. That will export it out with the watermark, my stamp in the lower left corner. I don't usually use watermarks anymore, but if you want them, you can. And then last but not least, and this is the one I like, so I don't have to go looking for it, show it to me when you're done. So export this out and show me the actual photo, where it is on my hard drive when you're done exporting. Now, we went through all of it. We got through it all in the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So I don't ever want to have to go through this with you again. Not in this class anyway. So that I don't ever have to go through this again, I'm going to click add on the left-hand side a preset for this so that it will save all of this stuff. And when I say add, I can call that preset. And do I have one called Masterclass? Yes, I do. I have a folder called Masterclass. I'm putting in a Masterclass folder, and I'm going to call it ATL exports. Okay, just so we know what it is. All right, so now that that's been saved under Masterclasses somewhere, there it is. Now when I hit export, it will do it. It will make that file, and it will show it to me in my Finder window in the February 10 Masterclass folder that it created. There it is. It's 235 kilobytes, very small, and that's the photo that I just exported. No matter what size the original was, that was only 1080 by whatever the height is. Okay, that's how you would simply export out a JPEG. Now, how would you, what's next up? How would you do the same thing in Lightroom, not Classic, in other words, Lightroom Cloud? So let's pop over to Lightroom, because I know some people use both, or some people use one, some people use the other. So let me pick a different photo. Let's grab this random photo I took of just people milling. Oh, that's kind of out of focus. Let's not use that one. There we go. A random picture of people milling around the bar and just talking. Okay, so now I'll hit X out. There's no export. So file, I'm sorry, there is an export. I was about to do it a different way. Sorry. You can do export, and the export dialog box is a lot simpler. So what you're going to do is choose your file format. You're going to choose your dimensions. So full size. I don't want full size. So either full size or small or custom. 1080 pixels, my default, what I like to use. You choose whatever you want. 100% quality. Notice there's no pixels per inch. There's none of that stuff. I'm sorry, there's no PPI resolution, because it just says, you know what? No one knows what 72 pixels per inch is anymore. Why don't we just give them a quality setting? That way, hey, you want it to be a high quality 1080 pixel wide image, then it will be a high quality one, as opposed to, I really don't like it to be full quality, 50% for whatever reason. Maybe it's a proof. So anyway, 100%, whether or not I want to include the watermark, all metadata or copyright data only. So again, it's very simple choices. File naming the original, or you can make it a custom name and a custom name. So I can call this one ATL from LR, so we know which one that is, and a number after it. Great. And again, same thing for output sharpening. Whether or not I want to do screen, matte paper, or whatever. I usually don't for small images, but I'll go ahead and do screen just for the heck of it. And then last but not least, this is an interesting one that I didn't see in the other one. It's probably there, I just didn't see it. Color space. So sRGB is a safe bet for anything screen related. In other words, website, email, social media, things that will be viewed on a screen. If you get into exporting for print, then you probably want to go with one of the other ones. For example, Adobe RGB is a safe bet for print. So depending on what it's going to be used for, then you'd pick one or the other. Now, some people will say, well, Terry, it's going to be used for both. It's going to be used for print and for them to share online. Okay, then that means you're going to need to give them a higher resolution image. Are they going to know how to downsize it for online? So I would highly recommend, if they need it for both, give them 2 files and mark them, one for print, one for web, and then they'll know which one's for which. They'll put that in the actual file name. And then you can choose sRGB for the web one or the on-screen one, and Adobe RGB for the print. That way you best of both worlds. They get a smaller file for web or viewing, they get a bigger file for printing. Okay, let's go ahead and export it. Now it's going to ask me where. So I'm going to tell it the same folder, desktop, for February Masterclass. Let's go ahead and export it there. And it doesn't show it to me, it just does it. So I trust that it did it. Let me pop back over to the Finder. And there it is. Here's the one from LR. And it is a little sharper. It is just a little sharper, just a little. Cool. All right. So that's the procedure for doing it from Lightroom versus Lightroom Classic. All right. Last but not least, on a single photo export, I might as well do it from the phone as well. Let me pop the phone open. All right. And let me show you the phone now. So I launched Lightroom on my phone, and I got the same album there. I'm just going to tap on it, and same photos, and I'll pick yet a different one. Let's pick this one. It's kind of goofy too. All right, this is one the guy holding the camera in front took it and sent it to me. So now if I wanted to share just this one photo with someone, I'm in Lightroom, how would I share it? There's no export. There's a share button on your phone. So that little triangle with the arrow pointing up at the very top, I'm sorry, square with the arrow pointing up at the very top, tap it. And then that will give you all your exporting and sharing options. So there's no export menu, but there is an export as at the very bottom. So if I choose share to, the very top one, think of that as bringing up the standard OS share sheet that will let you share it to all your different apps, that will let you export it to your camera roll, so forth and so on. So export to, think of it as just like any other app does, brings up the standard OS share sheet. You can text message it, share it on whatever apps support sharing directly to, so forth and so on. Now, you notice there's some other options. Get a link. Maybe you do want to share a full-size file and it's too big to export and send directly, so you can get a link to it. And since this is in the cloud, you can just share the link and they can view it that way in a browser. Invite people. I want to share it to specific people with specific emails. Export to camera roll, standard just like anything else. It will put it out on your camera roll as a JPEG, no matter what file format it was in. But export as, we're going to get to share to discover in a minute. Export as, that's the one that gives you all those custom settings like we saw on desktop and the ability to share it in different file formats. So if you wanted to share it as a JPEG, an original, the original means whatever file format it's in right now, the TIFF, the DNG, whatever. You can choose those four file formats. You get to choose your size, 1080's there, because I always use that. You get to choose whether or not a watermark. So this is very, very similar to the same exact options that you would get on Lightroom desktop. So what metadata do I want to include? And I like how it separates out the location info, file naming, output sharpening. So again, it's like mirroring the exact same options you got on Lightroom desktop. Okay, so if I wanted to export out that file, then I can get that file and export it out that way. Okay, next up, let's talk about, now that we did all the various ways of sharing a JPEG from Lightroom Classic, from Lightroom Desktop, from Lightroom on mobile, let's pop back over to Lightroom Classic and talk about the print thing. Let's say you wanted to print one of these. Let's say I wanted to print this photo. Now, I could go right back to export and just choose different options. So I could go File, Export, and just choose, save it to the same folder, maybe give it a different number. And then the thing that would change is the stuff down here. Oh, there's the sRGB. I knew it was there. Okay, so I would say, nope, I want to go Adobe RGB. I want to go 100% quality. I skipped over this last time. I want to go, nope, don't limit the file size. Don't resize it down. Leave it the original size because bigger the better for print. Yeah, metadata is fine, and then show it in the Finder. So now we're making basically a full resolution JPEG. No downsizing, and also one more thing, I would do output sharpening for, I don't know, I could do high, it's a landscape, that's fine. Or I'm sorry, cityscape. All right, so now And by the way, this has no adjustment, so don't judge it. Let's go ahead and export that one out. That one will show it in the Finder as well. And look at the size difference. This is 13.9 megabytes versus the 235 kilobytes we did before. So the other one was a super small image. This one's a super, oh, hang on. No, sorry, that's the size that's being uploaded, right? Yeah, 13 megabytes. Okay, 13.9 megabytes and versus 235. So big difference in file size. This would be the one I would send off to be printed. Nicholas is asking, no option for CMYK? No, because Lightroom has always been RGB only. So it doesn't do conversions to CMYK. And in most cases, most print processes, print drivers, printers in the modern era can handle RGB just fine and do the conversion in the printer. So Jazz is asking, Terry, would you please do a masterclass on histograms and how to use them? I don't know that I could do a whole class on it, but I can certainly incorporate it in a class. So yeah, histograms, I don't think it would take up an hour. Even if I tried to stretch it, it would be a boring hour. Anyway, so I will work in histograms into another class. Okay, let's go in and so we talked. Oh, that was one way to print. Now, if you have your own printer, you wouldn't bother exporting. You would just go to the print module. So here's a big difference between Lightroom Classic and Lightroom. Lightroom Classic has an actual print module. Lightroom has no printing whatsoever built in. All you can do, there's not even a Command P or Control P to print to a regular printer with nothing. There is no way to print directly from Lightroom because I guess the Lightroom team just assumed that these customers that use this version don't ever need to print directly. So you could export it out and use all the same high resolution settings, full resolution that I talked about a minute ago. Or, since we're talking about sharing, you could share it to a service. So there's 2 printing services built in. White House Color, which is a very good service. Blurb is also usually for books and projects. Both of those are supported for printing directly, sending it to print directly from Lightroom. But there's no ability to print to your own printer in Lightroom. You'd have to export it and open it up in something else like Photoshop. However, in Lightroom Classic, there is the ability to print directly to a printer. So when I hit the print module, not only is there a full-blown print module with design that you can design templates in, print multiple pictures on the same page, the whole 9 yards, put your watermark in, like this one's got my signature on it. You can do all kinds of cool stuff in the print module in Lightroom Classic. I could dedicate a whole class on this because there is a ton of stuff. Now, print to JPEG, which means use the print module to design your print and then still export that finished design as a JPEG or print to your actual printer. So if you have your own printer connected to your computer, then you can print directly to your printer with all the print sharpening and color management and so forth and so on that people printing to printers want to do. So it's been years since I own my own printer, so I don't really get into this very much, but color management's big. That's why it's built in. Making print adjustments. This is another big one. This is a huge one because typically when I did have my own printer and was making my own prints, they would sometimes come out darker than what I was seeing on screen. So you have the ability right here in the print module, instead of lightening the photo up and then printing it, you can lighten it up as you're printing it. So you print one, oh, it's too dark, make a print adjustment that only affects the print, not the actual file. And that way you don't have to make it lighter to print it, then undo it to make it look good on screen. So you've got all of this print capability, 16-bit output, everything that most people would ever want for printing built right in, printing to matte paper, glossy paper, so forth and so on. So have at it if you want to print to your own printer. But just keep in mind that this is a cool way to design multiple images up on the same page. Not a great shot to use for the third one, but you get the idea. Not a great shot to use for the third one. All right, we'll use that one. Okay, you get the idea. that the print module in Lightroom is killer, faster than anything else. Blows Photoshop away in terms of printing and what you can do quickly and easily with multiple photos. You would have to lay this out manually in Photoshop. By the time you took to lay this out, I would have printed like 30 copies already. I'd be done because you would have to do it all manually. So printing from Lightroom Classic, amazing. Printing from Lightroom, export or send to a service. Printing from your phone, obviously, export or send to a service. Well, yeah, because technically you could do it from your phone. You could use the share sheet, which I believe does let you get to your printer, your wireless printer, and print from your phone. So you could do it from Lightroom on your phone if you really had to. Okay, next up. All right, that for now handles a lot of the individual sharing. What this class, when I created this class in my head, what I was really envisioning was, so Roger's saying, oh, since the print adjustment has no preview, it's next to useless unless you do lots of test prints first. It is what it is. All right, faster than the speeding bullet, more powerful. Yep, okay, under the sharpen for screen when printing, do you change that option? Yes, I don't sharpen for screen. I sharpen for the type of paper it's going to go on. And would you use a smaller format if viewing on a large? Would I use the smaller format if viewing on a large monitor? I don't know what you're asking. If you mean monitor, sure. 1080 still looks decent on even a big monitor. But again, it's up to you. If you know that's going to be viewed on a 85-inch television, then make it bigger. Make it 4K resolution instead. All right. Okay. I think I covered all those. Let me look over here. I use ICC profiles for print. Best results for specific papers. Yep. Oh my God, I need the session. Have some pics. I need to print it. Great. Isn't it better for high-res prints? Isn't what better for high-res prints? Okay, I think I got all the immediate questions I saw. Okay, next up. What if I want to share this whole collection? The first thought comes to mind is, well, select all, export JPEGs, and then, I don't know, email all the JPEGs. No, stop. Stop going down that path, because there's a much better way. If you're sending me a text message with 3 or 4 pictures, great. If you're sending me a text message with 30 pictures, I'm really not happy with you. I'll look at them, but I'm not happy, because I don't want to look at 30 or 40 pictures in a text message. I want to look at a link that shows me all the pictures. I can click, zoom in, so forth and so on. Download the ones I need, so forth and so on. So when it's more than a couple, when it's more than 3, let's say, more than 5, whatever your number is, then it's better to share the whole collection and get a link, which is built into Lightroom Classic. Notice in the upper right-hand corner of this collection, there's the option to make public. And for all my users out there, that are always pondering, why do I need to use collections? I just use folders. Here's another reason for a collection. You can't do this with a folder. So I arrange these images, and by the way, those first 2 weren't from this shoot, so they wouldn't have been in that folder. But I can arrange them in a collection all I want. Now, the Make Public button will take just this collection, whatever's in it, and generate a URL. And that URL is free for you to use. It's private to just this collection. It doesn't share any photos that aren't in this collection. It takes way longer to generate than it should, but there it is. And that is a custom short URL that Adobe created for you for this collection of photos. So if I click on it, it takes me to my browser and it shows me those photos. That's it. Thanks. I'm good. I just had a water delivery, but I already had some. Anyway, so 21 photos. I can give that link to anyone I want to share it to, and they can now click through the photos and they can navigate through them. There's the navigation, and I don't have to worry about downsizing them. I don't have to worry about exporting out specific ones. I don't have to do any of that because it just created a collection or created a link for my collection, and away we go. Now, let's say that I click on a photo. Yeah, and all the download stuff is turned off by default. I'm going to show you ways of getting that, having more options, but this way you get the ability to easily share photos without having to think about it. That's the best way I can describe it. You get a link, put that link in the text message, then the person can look at this any way they want and see all the photos. And that way it could be not 21, it could be 2100, it could be 200, it could be 1000, it could be 50, it could be whatever number of photos you want without having to think about it. Okay, so now let's go back to Lightroom Classic, and Lightroom Classic pretty much stops there. You can either make it public, get a link, or go back to making it private and the link stops working. That's pretty much it. But if you head over to Lightroom, you get a few more options. Let's go back to the grid. And let's go up here. And notice I got share and invite. So share and invite, I don't know if that's the same link. It probably should be. But anyway, share and invite, sees a link. Right now it's set to anyone can view it. So that if I hadn't already done it, I can go ahead and create the link here. But the big difference and the reason I'm bringing you to Lightroom versus Lightroom Classic to do this is because you get a lot more options. You get to share it. Right now it's set to anyone can view it, or you can say invite only. That way, only specific emails will get the link and be able to share it. Or I'm sorry, be able to see it. Copy the links, share it on Facebook or Twitter, customize. So this allows me to give it a title, put in the author by yours truly and others. How you want it to look when it pops up as a photo grid by column, one up at a time. Appearance, dark background or light background. Of course, stop sharing. And then my favorite, settings. Do you want them to be able to download a copy or not of each image? Yes or no? So again, these could all be raw files, but I'm turning on allow JPEG downloads and exports. That means that when they click on a photo, oh, I really like this photo, I want it, click, they download it. All that conversion happens in the cloud. They don't have to think about, is it a raw file, is it a PSD, is it got layers in it, or any of that. It makes a JPEG on the fly. Show metadata, again, probably not. Show location, again, probably not, unless you're sharing a very specific, maybe you went on a hike, and you want all the geotag information from that hike to be exposed in the photo. Then that would be a case where you'd share a location for each photo. But in most cases, that stuff is off by default. Allow comments and likes. So if you're sharing to a group and you want people to heart the photos and make comments, you can do that. Or you can say, nope, I don't need any of that. Turn all that stuff off. Great. Okay, next up. So let's turn that off. Let's say we're done. Now let's take it up one more notch. So we've seen how to make a collection public. We've seen how to enhance all the things that link can do in Lightroom. And mobile does the same thing, by the way, as Lightroom. So Lightroom on phone, Lightroom on, do you have the option to charge for the collection? Adobe doesn't have a paywall, collect money or any of that. So you'd have to do that all in another place. Interesting idea though. And so Adobe's not a site for a photographer. It should be, but not a site for in my opinion, for a photographer to post photos and be able to sell them. It'd be nice, but it doesn't have that. Anyway, so on the phone, I could do all the same things, by the way, in Lightroom with an album. Now, there's one more way that you might be interested in sharing your photos. Let's go to Lightroom on browser to do this. So remember I was here, this was the album I shared. Well, I was already in that album. Now, by the way, this is the public version. That's the link I created and just clicked on it. Anyone with the link can look at this. But if I just go to lightroom.adobe.com on my own, meaning I pop open a browser and go to lightroom.adobe.com on my own, no link, and I sign in with my Adobe ID, then I'm going to see basically the web version of Lightroom. I'm going to see all my albums that I've synced. I'm going to see all my folders, which are collection sets, if you want to think of it that way. I see that album we're working on already. And there's another way to share an album for proofs. Now, this is for the photographer that took 21 photos and they want to share it with a client, and they want the client to say, I want these 5 to be retouched. I'm going to click these 5. And you get those 5 back to know which ones they are. That's proofing. The other sharing is just, hey, look at them or download them if you turn that on. This is a two-way share. This is, I'm going to give you a link, a different link, and this link is going to give you some more features that you can pick and choose which ones you want, make comments, so forth and so on. But then that comes back to me, and then I can know which ones you want retouched. Make sense? So to turn that on, and that only works on the web. It's a technology preview and has been for years. The only way to turn that on is you have to be in lightroom.adobe.com on the web. You can't do it on desktop, can't do it on mobile, has to be on the website. You go to your profile in the upper right-hand corner, so my picture up there in the upper right corner, whatever your profile is, and you go to Technology Previews. Technology Previews, if it's not already on, turn on Collaborative Proofing. It's a preview. It's a free to test and use. So turn that on. Once that's been turned on, then you'll have this icon in the lower right-hand corner. Can you still see that? Yes, you can. In the lower left-hand corner, the proofing icon. If you don't have this proofing icon, it's because your technology preview isn't turned on. That's what makes this available. Now, once you click that proofing icon on the web, then you'll notice it brings up this empty window, and over here on the right-hand side, click here to enable proofing. When I click it, I can enable proofing. And that'll give me that extra link, so I can still have a public link. Hey, everybody, look at these photos. And then I can have this extra link for proofing. They're not the same because this link is going to have features in it the other link doesn't have. I can limit the number of photos that I want the customer to be able to choose, 5, 10, 50, whatever your number is. Usually for me in my sessions, it's 10. But whatever you're contractually agreed to. So I'm going to say 5, just for the sake of example. All right, and I've created my link. I'm going to copy that link to the clipboard now. And I'm going to then make a new browser window. And I'm going to go to that link. Now, the only downside to this, see, I get a link now with little checks under them. The only downside to this is I'm already signed in. If you sent this to a generic person that doesn't know anything about Adobe, this technology preview still wants them to sign in with an Adobe ID. The Adobe ID is free to create. They can even use their social media profiles to sign in with it. But that's the only requirements. Doesn't cost anything. They just have to create an Adobe ID to sign in. That way, you know who the proofs came from, like who responded. That's it. So you get your customer, get your client, get your whoever. Hey, go to adobe.com, up in the right corner, click create Adobe ID. They go through the process. Okay, I use my email address. It's my Adobe ID now. And they sign in when they get this link. That's it. That's it. That's the only requirement. It's free to do, but it is something they have to do. All right, so I want this one. I want this one. I want this one. I want this one. And I want, and it tells me up top, I got 4 out of 5 selected, so I get one more. and I want this one. Okay, 5 out of 5 are selected, can't choose anymore. So now that that's been done, and this is the part I don't like because I've been burned by this. You send the link to a client. They go in and start clicking them. And they're not done. And you get a notification on your side that said, your client has picked their photos, but they're not done. So you say, cool. I go look at the ones they picked. I start working on them. And then I got another message a day later. Your client has picked some photos. No. So here, because there's no way for the client to say, I'm done. They just click the checks. They can come back tomorrow and uncheck these and pick 5 more. And you have no way of knowing when they're done. So I always, when I send this kind of link to a client, call me or text me when you're done. That way, because I'm not even going to bother looking till you're done. When you're done, then I'll go look to see what you picked. Okay, so now 5 have been picked. I head back here. Now I'm signed in as me here, and I just refresh this page. When I refresh this page or come back to this page, there are the 5 that they picked. Awesome. Yay, I know which ones they want. Better yet, this is on the web. I don't want to have to go back to Lightroom and say, now which one was that again? Especially if there are 5 photos that look almost exactly alike. You don't know which one was really the one they picked. There's no names under them, so forth and so on. So here's the better way for you to know which ones they are. At the very bottom, it says Create Album. Right here. Create Album. And then you can tell it where to put that album if you want. I'm going to tell it to add 5 photos to a new album. And I'm going to call it ATL Happy Hour Picks. These are the ones they picked. Create that album. So now I don't have to think about it. It put them all in there instantly. There are 5 photos in there. View the album. There are the 5 photos. It's down here at the very bottom. And when I head back to Lightroom on my computer, hang on, okay, sorry. It's at the bottom here, or it will be. That will sync, and that will be here at the bottom. There it is. Okay, so it just popped in behind my head. Let me put me over on the right-hand side. There we go. Just popped in behind my head right here. And now I'm going to move it to wherever I want it to be. So I'm going to move it all the way up, all the way up, all the way up to the Masterclass folder. There it is. ATL. Did I put it right? There it is. Happy Hour Picks. So now I retouch these 5. I do whatever I want with these 5. I share back these 5. These are the 5 that the people want. Okay, so now let's get into it. All right, that's one of the ones. I'm not going to do them all, but let's say they want this one. So then I go into Lightroom and I do my thing. Okay, that's I want to use my camera landscape profile. I want to do an auto tone. I want to go into geometry and do an auto upright. Great. All right, so let's say that photo is now ready to share back to the client, finished, export out JPEGs, or give them an album, whatever you want to do. All right, so now let's say that I really like this photo so much. I'm going to give you another way to share it. I want other photographers and other creators to see this. So Lightroom, now by the way, this will also sync all back down to Lightroom Classic as well. But Lightroom, not Classic, has a discovery section, a community basically of other people. And you can follow people and they can follow you. So it's basically a little photographer social media. So in other words, if I say share to discover, that brings up this, and I can say downtown, I can give it a title, Atlanta, Georgia, standing on the Jackson Street Bridge. All right, cool. It already kind of used AI to figure out what it is, architecture, urban. I can enable save a preset. So if I'm so proud of my edit that I want people to be able to look at this edit and download the preset of all the things I did to it, they can download the preset and click on their photo and click the preset and apply it. Very cool. But even better yet, this is kind of cool. Allow remixing. If I turn this on, then I'm allowing people, and I'll see what they remix. I'm allowing people to take the original photo and let them edit it and see how they would do it differently. So that's how you can share this and allow people to have fun with it. So I'm submitting this edit. Now they can't download it, they can't keep your photo, so forth and so on. It's just for allowing for remixing. So for example, here's one that I shared. It's had 13 remixes so far. So when I click on it, everything down at the bottom are people's remixes. None of these I feel are better than mine, but they're different versions. People, did their own thing with my photo. Some of these are interesting, but yeah. So anyway, there's mine, and mine will walk through. Save the preset. It'll walk them through everything that was done to it, or shows everything that was done to it. So yeah, they can click their way through the photo and see how I got to where I got, or play it. There we go. They can play it and it'll just get them to the final photo. So if you're ever wondering how this photo became this photo, the finished photo from the original, which was kind of that's how I did it. That's what the original looked like, by the way, the original raw file. So that's sharing for remixing. All right, let's do one more. Let's get out of this, go back, and let's go back one more. Hold on, let's get back to the right album. ATO Happy Hour, here we go. And I want to get back to this one, and I want to share this one in Photoshop. So I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to choose edit in Photoshop. There it is. I usually use the keyboard shortcut. Oh, this is not, hang on, let me do it from Classic, because that one's not the full res. This one's the full res. All right, so it popped it open. Oh, actually, I already had it open. It popped it open in Photoshop. And there's a big distraction here. It's actually the side of the car window. I took this out of the window as my car was parked on the street. So I didn't stick my camera out far enough and it got this stupid thing. But anyway, I would either crop that or fix this. But I want to see what my client or my whoever would want to change. Maybe they want other things changed. Maybe they want to get rid of the light post. Maybe they want more clouds, whatever they want, because I'm in Photoshop. So Photoshop has its own share feature in the upper right corner. There's a big blue share button. And I can either share and invite other people to edit it with Photoshop in the web, or they could download it and use Photoshop on desktop, or share for review. This is probably the one I'll use 99% of the time, 99.9% of the time. Rarely would I want someone else to edit it in Photoshop. Anyway, unless I'm working with another editor. So let's say share for review, Atlanta downtown, create link. And when that link is ready, it will give me a link that I can publicly just copy, just like in Lightroom, and paste it. And there's the link. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy that, and now let's head to a browser window. This time I'm going to do a browser window as a incognito or private so that I'm not logged in. So this would be stranger getting the photo who's not logged in, doesn't know anything about Adobe at all. So unlike Lightroom, where it required the user to sign in, I can sign in, but I don't know anything about that. I don't know what I'm signing into. I just want to go ahead and start making comments. So I'm going to say, put another cloud here. I just click the pin, put another cloud here, and submit. Now it's saying, hey, who are you? You want to sign in? Nope, I don't want to sign in. I am just Jack Bauer. I'm going to go ahead and say sign in as a guest. So basically, the guests did this. They didn't have to sign in and have to do anything special. They can draw around it. They can say, this looks bad. And so forth and so on. My feelings won't get hurt because I agree. All right, so anyway, they go in and start making all of what they would like to see. So you can send this out to 5 people, and they go in individually and say what they would like to see. Building looks a little crooked, so forth and so on, whatever it is. Now, what's happening back in Photoshop, if I get out of this, if I go to my comments tab, in Photoshop, I can see exactly what people said and where they said it. There's the pin. There's the mark, who said it. I can mark it as resolved, meaning I fixed it. I can update the link so they can see the fixed version. Sharing in Photoshop is very cool. So I'm out of time. I think I got through most of them. There's one more I would have shown you, which is sharing on social media using Adobe Express. So just head to express.adobe.com. And this is a great way to share your photos with people on social media, because you can go in and get templates, and therefore not only once you get the template, you have the ability to add your own photo, replace the sample photos that are there, and you can replace them right from Lightroom. So I can go Lightroom, grab my Lightroom albums, and grab a photo that I want to use. So there's ATL Happy Hour, and I want to use this group shot from our happy hour that was for Black History Month as well. And I want to crop this, and there we go. And I also want to resize this original. Resize. I'm out of time. I'm going to get cut. I'm already cut off. All right. So resize that as an Instagram story. But for the people still watching on all the other platforms, you get to see me finish this. And there it is. So now I can go ahead and download that. And that will be the photo that gets used as an Instagram story, all design. And of course, I can change the text, change the colors, change anything else. All right, folks, that is my time. I'm actually over time. I'm already been cut off on Adobe Live. So cheers, everyone. Thanks for watching. Happy weekend, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye, everybody.